Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Krisler's Convos. If you are new here, this is just a place where we have conversations with people about their health journey and how they've used functional medicine along the way. So today I am joined by Heidi Bodenheimer, and we're going to just have a conversation about her health journey. And so, welcome, Heidi. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm well today, thank you.
Good. I'm so excited to meet you, really, and jump into talking about your health journey. Before we do that, though, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Sure. So again, my name's Heidi Bodenheimer, and I am a national board certified health coach. I have 25 years in the fitness industry, so I'm not new to the whole fitness and wellness arena by any stretch of the imagination. I live in Boonesboro, Maryland, which is about an hour outside of Washington, D.C. And did I answer that? I think I answered all
Yeah.
the questions.
Yeah. So, um, so let's start with why you decided to specifically become a functional medicine health coach. Like, where did that stem from?
Yeah, so, interestingly enough, I had worked in many arenas of health coaching, and a lot of it always was around weight loss, which weight loss at the end of the day, does promote health. I'm not saying that it doesn't. However, I wanted there to be more. I knew that there was more, right? It's this whole circle of everything that brings us together. And so really what I found was the functional medicine arena was where that was being housed. And so I think more and more, I think it is slowly becoming a little bit more mainstream, but I think that's right now where it is. And so that's why I decided to go ahead and join forces with a functional medicine physician.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. I kind of started in the supplement industry. And again, supplements are fantastic. They are so useful for a wide variety of reasons. However, they're not the only thing, right? There's so many things that go into our health and wellness. And so, yeah, I kind of had that same thought process of it's not just about this one thing. Like there's so many options out there.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your health journey and kind of how um, you've moved through the process. I mean, where did you even find out about functional medicine?
Yeah, so good question. I guess what I would say is, on my journey of, well, first of all, let me back up a second and just explain that with 25 years in the fitness industry and then moving into health coaching, it was sort of that event was interesting in and of itself because I saw that the fitness industry wasn't doing its due diligence. The obesity rate was getting higher, not lower. And so, back in the day, I didn't even know it was called health coaching. I just knew that there was something missing. And
Hmm.
and then I did my research and I became certified in various things. It really wasn't called coaching at the time. And then I brought it to the facility where I was managing and I saw the difference it was making in people's lives. And I was like, oh, there's something to this. And then as I grew that and then grew my own business as a health coach, what I realized is that when I started to see what was being done and what people were really truly seeing transformation with, it was that functional component. It was that area where it was just so much more, like you said, than just the one thing, right? It was
Hmm.
all the components together. And so with that, I also have been dealing with my own health issues. And so it has stemmed from, to be honest, I've been pretty sick for about 5 years now, a little over actually. And it started with having many bouts of diverticulitis. And to the point of, having many uh antibiotics antibiotics that didn't work. So then I had to go get IV
Oh,
antibiotics,
wow.
to then having to have surgery. So after going through that, everyone was like, oh, it takes a year after the surgery, it takes a year. And so I'm not a very patient person, but I was being patient. I was doing my due diligence of trying to do all the things that I tell my clients and patients to do, right? And then a year came and went, and I still wasn't feeling any better. And so now it's been this journey, and I have aligned myself with a functional medicine doctor that I'm as a coach, but then also I became a patient. And then that's where I've been on this journey for about a year,
Hmm.
as a patient, to really explore, okay, well, what does this look like? What does this mean? And I've had to pivot, we've had to do different things. And so I'm dealing with Lyme, I'm dealing with a mold toxicity. We're still not there yet. So I have good days and not so good days, right? And that's where I'm at right now at this present
Hmm.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you even come to be diagnosed with diverticulitis?
So, it started with having the actual side pain and all that kind of stuff, that then I had to have a CAT scan and I had to do all the regular kind of traditional medicine stuff. And what's interesting is once I came on board with the functional medicine doctor I'm working with, um, she asked, well, why didn't anyone ever ask, why was they called me young, healthy, individual getting diverticulitis? And that was never asked.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now I do have a history. My grandmother, she did die of colon cancer at a young age. So there was that in my health, journey, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know how or why I got it. So it started with having one episode, and then I probably, to be honest, for about 2 years, I probably was having a diverticulitis flare up, probably
Hmm.
about every 8, 10 weeks for 2 years. And so then finally they were like, okay, if you get it again, that's it. And so
Hmm.
that's what happened. So then I had to have
Hmm.
surgery. So yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, there's so many things there when you talk about kind of the symptoms that you were experiencing, seeking out conventional medicine, looking at your health history. There's multiple things that are a part of just that one particular issue.
Mhm.
Um, when you were going through this process, what was it like for you to kind of continue to see doctors and not really experience any improvement? You kept having these
Yeah.
issues and flare-ups and so forth. What was that like for you?
It was awful. It was terrible
Hmm.
because I've always been known as the Energizer Bunny. I'm very energetic. I'm one of those crazy people that likes to work out. I couldn't work out like I wanted to. I couldn't do the things. I couldn't be me.
Hmm.
And so what I ended up doing, and even as a coach, now, looking back on it, I realized this is what I did, is I hid it because I could put on a good front for the short term, right?
Hmm.
And that wasn't serving me. That wasn't serving me. And so interestingly enough, what has become of all that then is I've become a much better coach because I was willing to be vulnerable, to share, and
Hmm.
that's why I'm here also, to share my story, because, I think it's where that vulnerability lies, even though it's scary and the unknown, right? But that's where we can grow.
Hmm.
So, and so to be honest, I mean, because again, I'm still on my journey. I'm not better yet. And so what I've learned is that especially even real recent, as in this, for 2024, I need to be able to be okay with my friends and family and be like, hey, today's not a good day for me. And that's where I'm at. And it has to
Hmm.
be okay.
Yeah.
Being able to be there and do that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And I think, with the empathy that you can show to your clients, it's very important. When you've gone through a struggle and maybe it isn't the same exact thing, but you've been in a position where you've struggled,
Mhm.
what some of the difficulties are. You've been in the pain or you've had the trauma, whatever it is. That as a coach, you can then kind of have a better just a better way to engage with clients.
Mhm.
I was talking with a client yesterday, and he was talking about how difficult it is to work from home and get up and move during the day because he's so focused. When he sits down at his computer, he's like in it And that's what he does all day. And I said, you know what? I get it. I work part-time from home as well. And on those days, it is harder to get up and move. And so I've personally been working with a health coach.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, oh, really? And I said, yeah, it's been really helpful. And, we kind of had that conversation. And so, yeah, so for you to do the same with your clients and
Yeah.
show them that vulnerability and show that empathy, I'm sure they benefit greatly from that.
Yeah. And I want to just add on to I feel like all coaches need a coach, right? And I think that proves and shows the benefits of having a coach, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's really, I think that's something that right now I think in as a coach, and in the coaching industry of all realms, a lot of people don't realize the benefit of what
Mm-hmm.
a coach can actually bring to somebody. And so, yeah, so I have a coach as well.
That's awesome. So, moving forward in your journey, now you're working with a functional medicine doctor as their patient, right? So, tell me what your experience has been in terms of comparing seeing a conventional medicine doctor and seeing a functional medicine doctor.
Sure. Yeah. And so let me also just back up too to say that, my husband's a family physician. So it's been an interesting ride to see, even so my care outside of him and then having a
Mhm.
spouse inside who, he does wonderful things. I think what I want to just preface the whole thing with is I think there's room for both, right? And so
Sure.
I think that that's where I'd like to start. But yeah, but in terms of my experience, being to the rheumatologist, being to the OBGYN, all these places that did all these labs or whatever, and they came back and they didn't show anything abnormal. So they're like, Heidi, sorry, we don't know what to tell you,
Hmm.
or, oh, well, maybe if you take this medicine, you'll feel better for a little bit, kind of thing.
Right.
And so I didn't get any answers unless I wanted to take a pill. And even if I wanted to take a pill, it wasn't like guaranteed because that wasn't
Hmm.
how it was. Versus the functional medicine doctor, Dr. Thompson, that I'm working with, she's very much like, okay, let's explore, let's get curious, let's find the root of why this is happening. And just like I said in the very, very beginning of our conversation, why no one ever asked, well, why was I getting diverticulitis?
Hmm.
No one ever asked that. So to even hear her say that, I was like, oh, and to be honest, that's where she asked me that before I even started working with her as a patient. And I was like, yeah, because this is what I want and this is what I need. I'm not saying it's easy. It doesn't happen overnight either, right? Some people,
Sure.
they reap the benefits straight away. And, it's been interesting to be on the other end of that as a coach, because I see some patients getting better and feeling great 2 months in, 3 months in, and I'm not there, right? And so that's why everyone's story is different and everyone's journey is different. So for me, finding some things, we found out that I have a mold toxicity, right? Getting the labs that showed that, but then also working on my gut microbiome. So I think that was the first step, is healing my gut. And then moving on from there. Also, the other part of the functional medicine that helped me tremendously as a fitness professional, I was always like, oh, just sweat it out, right? Just do that extra, whatever on the treadmill or whatever it may be, right? And, I was in adrenal fatigue. That was the absolute worst thing that I could have done for myself, right? So I think the other part of that is, even though in my mind I probably knew to listen to my body, but I needed someone to actually say that, Heidi, slow down,
Hmm.
Heidi, stop, right?
Yeah.
And so that really helped as well.
Yeah.
And the
I know.
difference.
I think, for many people, they can relate to this
Yeah.
in so many ways because, you mentioned kind of trying to hide what was going on from your friends and family or your clients.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do that, as moms, for example, we want to take care of our family. We want to do what we're supposed to do. And so we kind of just stuff things down and, oh, it's good. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And, it's a dumpster fire around us.
Yes.
Um, but also, we don't necessarily think about just kind of stopping
Yeah.
or resting or changing things up. It's not a terrible thing to do cardio, it can be really beneficial. However, there are other types of exercises that are also beneficial, right? That aren't necessarily going to tax your body in the same way and things like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
again, looking at things from a wider perspective and
Mhm.
going, okay, I can try this. It's okay for me to not, run 5 miles today. Maybe I can do yoga today, or maybe I can jump rope, or, just take a walk with my dog, or whatever it is. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a journey. It didn't have, I mean, I tried to push and it's really funny because, I have a lot of patients. It'll be the same and I'll be like, oh, yeah. But again, that empathy piece, I can relate now. And I'm like, I was there. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, yeah. So
Yeah.
sometimes less is more.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I'm curious to know how, kind of thinking now about your um, being in the fitness industry for so long, and then adding the coaching piece even before you had formalized training in the coaching, but just adding that coaching piece. Um, what were some of the challenges or maybe things that you found your clients didn't really get about the difference between being a personal trainer, for example, and a health coach?
Yeah. That's a great question. And it's interesting because, I think how I would like to answer that is, I had this woman who was one of my first coaching clients. And she came in and she's like, Heidi, like she came into the gym and she's like, Heidi, I really just don't like coming into the gym. I like to be outside. I don't like the gym. I'm like, and here I am, I'm managing this facility, right? So I'm they're relying on sales, and I'm like, then why are you coming to the gym? Right.
Right.
So I think from a coaching end of things, we can help that person to pull out what it is that's important to them. And like I always like to say, as a coach, like the client is in the driver's seat, right? We just sort of help to steer, right? We help the steering, but ultimately they're in the driver's seat. So in that regard, like that example, it just goes to show, I think that's where, that has so much clout, right? To
Hmm.
have someone. And then in addition to that, that accountability piece, you don't typically, that's not, I mean, yeah, you might have a personal trainer checking in with you kind of thing, but that accountability of, you know, again, being in the driver's seat and then where do you go next for behavior change? I mean, all the research shows that that's where it's at. And so I think that that would be one of the biggest differences from to promote behavior change rather than
Hmm.
come to me for this session. I mean, I had wonderful, wonderful personal training sessions. You know what I mean? I love personal
Yeah.
training, but and it was transformational. And I think that there's a place for everyone, right? So at the
Sure.
end of the day, I think there's a place for a personal trainer, a health coach, a primary care doctor, a functional medicine. You know what I mean? And it takes a village, right?
Hmm.
It takes a village. And so I think that the whole community of wellness people to help us on our journey, because no one journey is the same.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I do think that there can be some misconceptions about, what trainers do, what coaches do, what nutritionists do, and how they are different, but also can work together
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
benefit of the client as well. So, yeah, that's a great example. I
Yeah.
too have had people come and say, well, just tell me what to eat. And I'm like, but I'm not your mom. Like, I'm your
Yeah.
coach. This is a different type of
Yeah.
relationship. So, yeah.
Yeah. And also different from a dietitian or something, right? And then
Hmm.
that's where it is. And I do really believe that that's a big misconception out there to like what is a coach and what does a coach do? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think that we as a coaching industry together, we need to be promoting that a little bit better than we are, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that there's so much yummy goodness in a coaching relationship. Um, so it just needs to
Yeah.
be presented that way. Yeah.
Awesome. So, kind of thinking about how you are today, even though you're not, 100% better, but, thinking about how you are today versus 5 years ago when you kind of first started down this journey, what are some of the things you would say have improved for you?
Absolutely. My mindset, I like to always say to people now, I help people develop, buff bodies in the past, and now I help develop buff mindsets. And that started with mine. It started with
Mm,
me first. And so that resiliency, that, getting back up on the horse, that, eh, every day doesn't have to be a happy-go-lucky, positive, yay cheerleader type of day. But oh my goodness, I've come such a long way. I've come such a long way in just the outlook, and it's how I manage to get through my day, how I look at each and every patient and client I come in contact with, each and every human being I come in contact with, right? Because we all have this one amazing life to live, and
mhm,
I think we should try to live it the best we can, and the only way we're going to do that is to try to be a little bit better than we were yesterday. And so that's what I coach, but I also live it. So I
mhm,
feel like I'm a product of my product, because
mhm.
I try to be 1% better today than I was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. Mindset is a huge part of the journey. There are um, so many, I think, crippling even thoughts
Yeah.
that we carry, and we may not even realize that until we start again working with a coach or someone who's listening to us, right? And then we start to vocalize those things and we go, oh, did I just say that out loud? Is that what I've been carrying around for a while? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you start when things like that happen. I love that, because you're like, oh, or you take a moment, you go, wow, I've really come a long way. And listen,
Hmm.
I don't think I think it's a journey. I don't think it ever ends, right?
Hmm.
It's a process, and I get a little bit better each and every day, but I can't stop, right? I don't stop. And I have my not so good days. I have my bad days too, just like every other person, right? I'm human too. So when we're all entitled to those, and I think that's where, I've done a lot of Brene Brown's work and things like that with, making sure we feel our feelings, right?
Hmm.
And to identify them and acknowledge them. I think it's really, really important as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
so that's sort of, I think, where my coaching, if I were to say, where do my expertise lie and where does my passion, I mean, it's all my passion, but at the same time, I would say that mindset component, just because I feel like it is so, so powerful when
Hmm.
to it. I have lots of patients who will, they they're like, Heidi, I don't need motivation. I'm motivated. I can do this. I can do that. But I can't just sit still with myself. I can't just be. And I'm like, and
Yeah.
so then that becomes the challenge, right? That becomes the motivation. And, so it's interesting. I love
Hmm.
it. Everyone's story is so different. So
Hmm. Yeah. So when you started to work on some of these areas to improve, like when you found out about the Lyme and the mold and so forth, what sorts of things or where did you even start with modifying? Because obviously, as a health coach and certainly with functional medicine in general, modifiable lifestyle factors, right?
yeah.
That's
Mhm.
the area. So for you, what sort of lifestyle factors did you modify for yourself?
Yeah. Well, so I had already been, prior to this year working with a functional medicine doctor, I had already been meditating regularly, but I have to say that because I think that's a huge component of my well-being, in addition to journaling.
Hmm.
But probably the biggest component the past year, I'm a sugar gal, I'm a chocoholic. And that sugar piece for me, with everything I have going on in my body, just it does not serve me. It really adds havoc to my system. It causes joint pain, all sorts of just craziness. And so I think that that has been something that, not that I don't ever have it. I mean, we just had the holidays. Yeah, I had my favorite cookies for sure. But I realized that I need to kind of pull in the reins on that a little bit. And so that's
Hmm.
probably one of the biggest things for me, that I can say that I changed in terms of a behavioral change. And then it's interesting because once you do that, you think you can't do it, right? And then you
Hmm.
put yourself to the test and you're like, oh, well, this isn't so bad. And then the next day isn't so bad. The first couple of days are bad, right?
Right.
And then
Yeah.
you find you don't even really want it or need it. And so that's where I'm kind of at now. I mean, if someone would have told me that a piece of chocolate could sit by me and I wouldn't eat it, I'd be like, you're absolutely out of your mind. But I can now. It doesn't even faze me. I think because I know how it makes me feel,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah. I used to keep chocolate in my nightstand next to my bed. And at night I would sit and,
Ah,
have a few pieces. And it was like every night until it was gone. And then, I go a little, and then there would be another bag. And so, yeah, now I don't even know when the last time was that I had chocolate in my nightstand. And
yeah,
do I eat chocolate? Absolutely. But you're right. Once you go through kind of the pain and struggle of that time frame of getting rid of it, or, lowering it, or whatever you're going to do, and you get to that point where you're like, okay, I've struggled. It was hard. Acknowledge that, because it is for many people, but also acknowledge the fact that you did it,
yeah,
right? That's a big part of what we learned in our coaching, is to celebrate those moments.
absolutely. Every little
Yeah.
baby, small success, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's what I do too. Everyone's like, because I always ask, well, how are you going to celebrate? And I always try to encourage people to not celebrate with food. Just, I think we've gotten into a culture of always celebrating with food, and not that we
Hmm.
can't do that once in a while, but for me personally, I'm always going to buy, I go with I guess, who is it? Miley Cyrus's, I can buy myself flowers.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, it has been such a great time talking with you and hearing a little bit about your story. Certainly, I can tell that you have a passion to learn, and you're curious about people, and you want to help folks. And, for folks who are out there who maybe want to know more specifics about your story, or they just want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
Sure. My website is Heidi Bodenheimer, and that's BODENHEIMER.com. Also, the root cause .com, because that's where I have a major contract with her, and that's where you can find me coaching as well. And so on there has both my information to be able to email me and whatnot and get in touch with me. So that would probably be the best.
Awesome. Well, I will put that in the show description as
Okay,
well.
great. Thank you.
And yeah, thank you so much, Heidi, for sharing your story, and for being such a light in the coaching industry and to your clients. And for those of you out there that enjoyed this conversation, give us a like, comment, let us know what you got out of this conversation. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of the convos. Until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.
Bye bye.